The human body is born with an invisible internal programming, a set of genetic codes and instructions that determine not only how we grow, but also how we inevitably begin to age. Aging is one of biology's greatest mysteries, a universal and relentless process that affects all known multicellular life forms. But what exactly causes time to physically manifest in wrinkles, gray hair, muscle loss, and cognitive decline? Scientifically, there is no single cause for aging. Rather, it is a complex combination of cumulative failures in the body's repair systems, random DNA errors, progressive cellular dysfunction, and silent environmental influences that erode our vitality over the decades. One of the first hypotheses about aging dates back to the concept of accumulated damage. Over time, every cell in the body suffers micro-damage caused by ultraviolet radiation, pollution, metabolic toxins, DNA replication errors, and oxidation from free radicals. Initially, the body is capable of repairing this damage, but as we age, these maintenance systems become less efficient. It's like a machine designed to last a specific amount of time. Eventually, the parts begin to fail. This gradual decline in the performance of repair mechanisms leads to genetic mutations, malfunctioning proteins, and programmed cell death, also known as apoptosis. Another relevant theory is the so-called programmed gene theory, which suggests that aging may be partly controlled by inherited biological programming. In this model, certain genes are activated or deactivated throughout life to modulate specific functions such as growth, reproduction, and later the gradual shutdown of cellular capacities. This would explain why different species age at different rates, with some living only days and others, such as turtles or bowhead whales, reaching centuries of life. Biological time would, in this case, be a kind of genetically controlled internal clock, adapted to the evolutionary pressure of each species. There is also the hypothesis of imbalanced metabolic networks, which focuses on the idea that aging arises from the gradual collapse of cellular signaling systems. As cells replicate, small faults in metabolic instructions can propagate like a domino effect. Communication between mitochondria, the nucleus, and ribosomes, the energy, control, and manufacturing centers of the cell, begins to fail. This can result in the accumulation of defective proteins, chronic inflammatory responses, and even chaotic behavior in tissues that once functioned in an orderly fashion. This internal imbalance is one of the reasons why aging is also associated with neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. An important observation is that aging, no matter how uncomfortable it may seem, is not a mistake of nature, but rather a consequence of biological mechanisms that allowed us to survive and reproduce. Evolution shaped our bodies to reach sexual maturity, protect offspring, and ensure the survival of the species. After that, natural selection becomes less intense. There is no strong evolutionary pressure to ensure we live to 120 years in perfect health. That's why repair mechanisms, although impressive, were not optimized for eternity. Cellular degradation after age 60, 70, or 80 is not a system failure. It's the system functioning beyond what it was selected for. Despite this, current science seeks to understand how to slow down, interrupt, or even reverse parts of this process. Based on studies in molecular biology, comparative genetics, and epigenetics, scientists have discovered that there are possible points of intervention, small changes in habits or specific molecules that can, at least in theory, prolong cellular health. The pursuit of a long and functional life is not an attempt to cheat death, but to enhance quality of life during the time we have. Thus, the hope is born that by understanding the enigma of biological time, we can not only live longer, but live better. At the core of every cell in the human body, where the genetic material that defines who we are is stored, there exist invisible structures that act as silent guardians of time, telomeres. These special regions, located at the ends of chromosomes, do not carry genetic information in the traditional sense, but play a crucial role in protecting DNA. Each time a cell divides, the telomeres shorten slightly. Like the slow-burning tip of a fuse that gets smaller with every replication, over time this shortening reaches a critical point where the cell can no longer divide safely, entering senescence or dying. That's why telomeres are often called molecular hourglasses that count down the remaining functional lifespan of a cell. The phenomenon of telomere shortening has not only been observed in laboratories, but is also confirmed as one of the most consistent biological markers of aging. Telomeres are composed of repetitive nucleotide sequences. In humans, the repeat is TTAG, which serve as a buffer zone to prevent essential parts of DNA from being lost during cell division. However, the natural mechanism for duplicating DNA cannot perfectly copy the very ends of each chromosome. This is known as the end replication problem. It is a structural limitation embedded in the very mechanics of cellular life, and the faster or more frequently a cell divides, such as skin, intestinal, or immune cells, the faster its telomeres wear down. It was during the 1980s that this mechanism began to be understood more deeply, culminating in the 2009 Nobel Prize in Medicine awarded to Elizabeth Blackburn, Carol Greider, and Jack Szostak. They discovered telomerase, an enzyme capable of restoring or extending telomeres in certain cells. Telomerase is present, for instance, in stem cells, germ cells, and cancer cells. In these cell populations, the life cycle is different. They can escape the progressive shortening of telomeres and, in many cases, become practically immortal. This raises a fascinating and ambiguous question. Telomerase may be both an elixir of longevity and a poison of mortality, because the same mechanism that prolongs cell life can also enable the uncontrolled growth of tumors. When observing human populations, scientists have noted that individuals with longer telomeres tend to have a lower risk of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's, and even certain types of cancer. Furthermore, longitudinal studies have shown that people exposed to chronic stress, poor diet, pollution, and insomnia tend to exhibit shorter telomeres at an earlier age. This reinforces the idea that lifestyle directly affects cellular health. Factors such as meditation, adequate sleep, antioxidant-rich diets, regular physical activity, and healthy social relationships are being studied as potential positive influences of telomere maintenance. It is important to emphasize, however, that telomere length is not the sole determinant of longevity. It is just one piece, albeit a very relevant one, of the larger puzzle of aging. Moreover, there are technical and biological limitations to using telomeres as reliable biomarkers on a large scale. The rate of shortening varies between different tissues, between individuals, and even among cells within the same individual. Nevertheless, telomeres remain one of the most powerful symbols of the passage of biological time. Silent, invisible, yet essential. At the cutting edge of science, researchers are exploring gene therapies, telomerase modulation, senolytic compounds, and epigenetic interventions to attempt to slow or reverse telomere shortening. But even without futuristic technologies, data suggests that healthy habits may protect these tiny cellular clocks, extending not just the number of years in life, but more importantly, the quality of those years. Aging well, it seems, also depends on how we treat our telomeres throughout life. Inside every cell of the human body, a constant operation of surveillance, repair, and recycling takes place. Among these functions, one of the most surprising and crucial for maintaining life is autophagy, a highly regulated cellular mechanism that literally means to eat oneself. Far from being destructive, autophagy is one of the most sophisticated forms of the body's defense against aging and the buildup of biological waste. Its function can be compared to a selective collection and reuse service. Damaged cellular structures, misshapen proteins, useless fragments of organelles, and even invaders like viruses are isolated and sent for intracellular digestion. In doing so, the cell cleans itself from within, recycles nutrients, and maintains efficient operation, avoiding premature failure. This process became one of the most fascinating focuses in aging biology after being deeply elucidated by Japanese scientist Yoshinori Ohsumi, whose work earned him the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 2016. Ohsumi demonstrated that autophagy is not just a reaction to cellular stress, but a vital mechanism for survival. It is activated in moments of deprivation, such as during fasting or intense physical exercise, when the body needs to find internal sources of energy. By degrading aged structures and reusing molecular building blocks for new construction, the organism not only survives scarcity, but renews itself. In this sense, autophagy is more than a defense mechanism. It is an internal ritual of rejuvenation. Experimental studies in animals have shown that controlled activation of autophagy can significantly extend life expectancy. In worms, flies, mice, and even primates, interventions that stimulate autophagy, such as caloric restriction or compounds like rapamycin, have been associated with delayed aging, improved cognitive function, reduced incidence of neurodegenerative diseases, and increased resilience to oxidative stress. These discoveries opened a new frontier in biomedicine, suggesting that activating this internal cellular cleaning mechanism could be one of the keys to preserving the body's functional youth for longer. Among the main triggers of autophagy in humans are intermittent fasting, moderate and consistent physical activity, and, to a lesser extent, specific dietary components such as polyphenols found in green tea, turmeric, resveratrol, and ginger. However, autophagy stimulation must be carefully balanced. Excessive fasting, severe nutritional deprivation, or radical practices can compromise the body's integrity and have the opposite effect of what's intended. Current science aims to understand what are the ideal doses of physiological stress that activate autophagy without causing harm. It's about inducing beneficial adaptation, not destructive aggression to the body. In aged human tissues such as muscles, liver, and brain, autophagic activity tends to decline over time. This leads to the accumulation of dysfunctional structures, misfolded proteins, and damaged mitochondria, contributing to the development of age-related diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, sarcopenia, and hepatic steatosis. Therefore, keeping autophagy functioning properly is not merely a matter of aesthetics or extreme longevity. It is a real strategy for preventing degenerative diseases and preserving metabolic vitality. In summary, autophagy is one of nature's most powerful tools for preserving life. By recycling what is worn out and eliminating what threatens cellular integrity, it allows tissues to maintain their functional youth even under pressure. More than a technical concept, autophagy reveals a profound biological wisdom. To live well is also to know how to renew oneself from within, in silent cycles of constructive destruction that keep the machinery of life in motion. Behind the tranquil appearance of a seemingly healthy body, there may be a chronic and persistent process of invisible deterioration. This condition, known in science as low-grade inflammation, or inflammaging, has been identified as one of the hidden pillars of aging and the progressive degeneration of tissues and organs. Unlike acute inflammation, those that arise in response to infection, fever, or injury and then subside, silent inflammation acts like a low, constant flame, gradually corroding the body in a mostly imperceptible way. It doesn't hurt, swell visibly, or show clear external signs, but its consequences accumulate over decades, creating fertile ground for diseases like type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's, cancer, osteoarthritis, and cardiovascular disorders. The origin of this constant inflammation lies in the body's own immune cells, which, over time, begin to release small amounts of pro-inflammatory cytokines, even without a clear threat. This can occur for several reasons. The accumulation of senescent cells, which no longer die or replicate but remain in the body emitting harmful signals. Mitochondrial dysfunctions, which release toxic byproducts that inflame tissues. Alterations in the gut microbiota, compromising the integrity of the intestinal barrier, as well as the impact of external factors like pollution, ultra-processed food, sedentary behavior, obesity, and chronic sleep deprivation. Together, these elements feed a vicious cycle of metabolic stress that deregulates the immune system and promotes premature aging. At the cellular level, low-grade inflammation accelerates the loss of function in vital tissues. In the brain, it promotes neuroinflammation, impairing memory and facilitating the buildup of beta-amyloid plaques linked to Alzheimer's disease. In the cardiovascular system, it contributes to the formation of atherosclerotic plaques, which narrow arteries and increase the risk of heart attack and stroke. In the liver, it encourages fatty liver disease and fibrosis. In the pancreas, it compromises insulin production. Even the bones suffer. Chronic inflammation promotes bone resorption and fragility, increasing the risk of fractures. This explains why so many aging-related problems are tied to this invisible fire silently spreading throughout the body. Detecting silent inflammation is not simple, but some laboratory markers help indicate its presence. Among them are high sensitivity C-reactive protein, HSCRP, fibrinogen, interleukin-6, IL-6, and tumor necrosis factor alpha, TNF-A. Persistently elevated levels of these substances, even in asymptomatic individuals, are considered predictors of accelerated biological aging and higher risk of chronic diseases. For this reason, modern medicine is beginning to prioritize strategies that not only treat established diseases, but also reduce this type of basal silent inflammation that precedes many severe clinical conditions. The good news is that this inflammatory process can be mitigated through accessible and non-invasive interventions. An anti-inflammatory diet based on fruits, vegetables, whole grains, olive oil, and omega-3 rich fish has shown strong effectiveness. Regular physical activity, especially walking, yoga, and lightweight training, lowers levels of inflammatory cytokines. Deep, high-quality sleep, combined with chronic stress reduction through meditation or contact with nature, also has proven effects on immune modulation. Increasingly, science is investigating the role of the gut microbiota, particularly prebiotics, probiotics, and fiber, as a central regulator of inflammation. Silent inflammation is, therefore, a kind of inverted biological clock. The more active it is, the faster tissues wear down. Recognizing it as a key factor in aging opens the door to a more preventive and regenerative approach to medicine. By combating this invisible fire, we not only prolong life, but restore the quality of the years lived, bringing balance back to a body that, in silence, simply wants to breathe in peace. Every second, billions of chemical reactions occur within the human body to sustain vital functions. We breathe, digest, think, and move thanks to these cellular reactions, but all of them inevitably generate unstable and highly reactive byproducts known as free radicals. These molecules have an unpaired electron, which makes them chemically aggressive. As they circulate through the body, free radicals attempt to steal electrons from other cellular structures such as proteins, lipids, and even DNA, triggering a process called oxidative stress. This silent molecular war is at the core of many theories on aging, as it damages essential cell components and impairs their function over time. During youth, the body possesses effective antioxidant defenses. Enzymes like superoxide dismutase, catalase, and glutathione peroxidase neutralize free radicals before they cause significant harm. Additionally, antioxidant nutrients obtained from food, such as vitamin C, vitamin E, selenium, zinc, flavonoids, and carotenoids, reinforce this natural defense line. However, as we age, free radical production tends to increase, while antioxidant systems become less efficient. This imbalance between the generation and neutralization of reactive molecules is what defines oxidative stress. And the longer this stress remains active in the body, the greater the risk of cumulative cellular damage. This kind of oxidative damage is involved in various age-related diseases. In the brain, for example, it contributes to neuron degeneration and is linked to the onset of diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. In the cardiovascular system, it oxidizes LDL cholesterol, promoting the formation of atheromatous plaques in the arteries. In the eyes, it accelerates macular degeneration and cataract formation. In the skin, it breaks down collagen, leading to wrinkles and loss of elasticity. Even DNA is vulnerable. When free radicals attack genes, they can cause mutations that increase the risk of cancer. Essentially, oxidative stress acts like constant microscopic erosion, capable of accelerating the body's biological clock. For decades, it was believed that the solution was simply to consume large amounts of antioxidants through supplements. However, recent studies show that mass balance is more important than excess. Yet, isolated antioxidants in megadoses don't always behave as protectors. In some contexts, they may even act as pro-oxidants. The nature of cellular chemistry is subtle and dynamic. Free radicals also serve important functions, such as signaling damage, modulating immune responses, and destroying defective cells. Therefore, the goal is not to eliminate them entirely, but to keep their levels in check, reducing damage without interfering with the body's natural functions. Maintaining this balance involves simple yet profound choices. Diets rich in fresh and varied foods, berries, dark leafy greens, nuts, olive oil, green tea, provide natural antioxidants in synergy with fiber, enzymes, and phytonutrients. Regular physical activity also helps, despite temporarily increasing free radical production, as it encourages the body's antioxidant adaptation over time. Avoiding smoking, reducing pollution exposure, managing stress, and getting good sleep are also effective ways to reduce oxidative stress. Each of these habits contributes to making the internal environment of cells less corrosive, more balanced, and biologically stable. The invisible war waged by cells against free radicals cannot be won with miracle pills or magical formulas. It is a continuous battle, fought day after day, and its outcome depends on the accumulation of small choices made over a lifetime. When we understand that aging healthily is, in part, about keeping this battle under control, we begin to see daily habits not as sacrifices, but as acts of molecular protection. In this context, longevity becomes the silent reward of a body that has learned to live in harmony with its own chemistry. Behind the conscious choices we make every day, what we eat, how much we exercise, how we handle stress, there is a silent code inscribed in every cell of the body that influences our biological trajectory from birth to old age. This is the genetics of longevity, the set of instructions inherited from our parents that determines not only visible traits like eye color or height, but also predispositions to disease, the speed of cellular aging, and the potential for regeneration. The major scientific question is, what is the actual weight of genetics in human longevity? And perhaps more importantly, to what extent can it be modified by our lifestyle? Studies with identical twins, who share the same DNA, have been a key tool in answering these questions. They revealed that heredity accounts for about 20% to 30% of the variation in longevity among individuals. This means that most of our life expectancy is not rigidly written in our genes, but is shaped by environmental and behavioral factors. Still, genes play a decisive role in extreme cases. Families with many centenarian members exhibit rare genetic patterns that favor extreme longevity, such as more efficient lipid metabolism, a lower tendency toward chronic inflammation, and greater protection against neurodegenerative diseases. Several genes have been associated with longevity, but one of the most studied is FOXO3, often referred to as the longevity gene. People with specific variants of this gene seem to show better responses to cellular stress, higher antioxidant capacity, and lower incidence of cardiovascular disease. Another important gene is ApoE, which influences the risk of Alzheimer's, especially the ApoE4 variant linked to higher risk, while ApoE2 appears to offer protection. Other relevant genes include those involved in DNA repair, such as SIRT1, part of the sirtuin family, and genes that regulate glucose, cholesterol, and insulin metabolism. These genetic elements do not guarantee longevity, but they can act as shields or vulnerabilities when facing life's challenges. The study of the genomes of centenarians and supercentenarians, people over 110 years old, has revealed intriguing genetic patterns. Many of these individuals have genetic combinations that make them less susceptible to the buildup of beta amyloid plaques in the brain, arterial stiffening, insulin resistance, and muscle loss. Interestingly, some centenarians smoked or had less than ideal habits, raising the hypothesis that certain people have such efficient genetic repair mechanisms that they easily neutralize environmental damage. However, these cases are rare and do not represent the general population. For most of us, genetics may load the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger. A growing field of research is epigenetics, which shows how external factors such as diet, sleep, emotions, and environment can switch on or switch off certain genes throughout life. This means that even those born with unfavorable genes can modulate their expression through healthy choices. Unlike classical genetics, epigenetics is reversible and sensitive to daily routines. A plant-based diet, physical activity, meditation, social connection, and exposure to nature have shown positive epigenetic impacts, capable of silencing inflammatory genes, activating repair genes, and preserving cellular integrity. In this way, genes are not destiny but a starting point. In practice, the study of the genetics of longevity has helped identify therapeutic targets, risk biomarkers, and potential interventions to delay aging. In the future, It's possible that personalized genetic testing will allow for individualized preventive strategies based on each person's genomic profile. But for now, science points to a delicate balance. Our biological inheritance may open or close certain doors, but it's up to us to choose which paths we walk. Aging healthily in this context is not just a genetic privilege. It is, above all, an active process of conscious decisions that shape the dialogue between our genes and our environment. While we sleep, something extraordinary unfolds inside the human body. Far from being a state of inactivity, deep sleep is a highly regulated condition of maintenance, reconstruction, and balance. During those dark hours, the body carries out a series of molecular repairs and physiological adjustments that are essential for the preservation of health and longevity. Sleeping well is not just a luxury or a temporary need, it is one of the fundamental pillars of a long life. Science has already shown that chronic sleep deprivation shortens life expectancy, weakens the immune system, accelerates cellular aging, and increases the risk of diseases such as obesity, Alzheimer's, type 2 diabetes, and cardiovascular disorders. Sleep acts like a biological reset. During deep sleep, known as stage N3 or slow-wave sleep, the body reduces metabolic activity, lowers blood pressure, and releases crucial hormones like growth hormone, GH, which helps regenerate tissues and strengthen muscles and bones. The brain's lymphatic system, called the glymphatic system, becomes more active during this phase, clearing out toxic waste accumulated throughout the day, including proteins linked to Alzheimer's disease. Additionally, during REM sleep, the stage of vivid dreaming, memory consolidation, neural network reorganization, and emotional regulation occur. Each of these phases is irreplaceable, and when they're frequently interrupted, the body pays a price, one that is invisible but profound. The connection between sleep and longevity also operates at the cellular level. Research shows that poor sleep increases the release of cortisol, the stress hormone, which stimulates chronic inflammation and impairs DNA repair. Furthermore, sleep deprivation reduces the activity of telomerase, the enzyme that protects telomeres, those tiny segments at the ends of chromosomes that act as aging markers. Large-scale studies have shown that people who consistently sleep less than 6 hours per night have shorter telomeres and a higher risk of premature death. Thus, good sleep is not just restorative, it is genetically and immunologically protective. Another critical aspect is the impact of sleep on appetite regulation and metabolism. Lack of sleep disrupts the production of leptin and ghrelin, the hormones responsible for satiety and hunger. As a result, sleep-deprived individuals often feel hungrier and crave calorie-dense, processed foods, leading to weight gain and increased visceral fat, a central risk factor for chronic diseases. At the same time, poor sleep impairs insulin sensitivity, raises blood glucose levels, and fosters the development of diabetes. Therefore, nightly rest serves as a natural metabolic regulator, keeping the body balanced and helping prevent a cascade of disorders that accelerate aging. However, sleep quality is not solely about duration. Circadian rhythms, consistent sleep schedules, exposure to natural light during the day, and total darkness at night are essential factors. Melatonin, the hormone of the night, is only produced in dark, quiet environments. Artificial lights, phone screens, and erratic evening habits disrupt its production and confuse the body's internal clock. That's why sleep experts recommend a stable bedtime routine, limited use of electronic devices before sleep, reduced caffeine after noon, relaxation techniques, and moderate exercise throughout the day, all of which promote deep, restorative sleep. Sleeping well should not be viewed as a modern luxury, but as an ancient biological instinct that has supported human health since the dawn of our species. In times of packed schedules, constant stimuli, and increasingly shorter nights, rediscovering the value of sleep is one of the most powerful and accessible ways to age with vitality. Each night of quality sleep is like an investment in body and mind, a quiet act that, when repeated consistently, slowly builds the foundation of a long, lucid, and functional life. At every meal, often without realizing it, we make decisions that directly influence the speed at which our bodies age. The foods we choose each day not only provide energy, but also act as biochemical messengers, that activate or inhibit inflammatory, oxidative, and metabolic processes. For this reason, nutrition has been studied as one of the most powerful factors in promoting longevity and preventing premature aging. This is not about passing trends or miracle superfoods, but about dietary patterns that, over decades, have demonstrated real effectiveness in maintaining cellular, hormonal, immune, and cognitive health. Among the most studied dietary models, the Mediterranean diet is at the center of scientific debate. Based on whole foods, extra virgin olive oil, fresh vegetables, fruits, nuts, whole grains, herbs, and moderate fish consumption, this diet has been consistently linked to reduced cardiovascular disease, cognitive decline, type 2 diabetes, and chronic inflammation. The bioactive compounds in these foods, such as polyphenols, flavonoids, carotenoids, and monounsaturated fats, act as natural antioxidants and epigenetic regulators, directly influencing the expression of genes related to longevity and cellular repair. Another approach with strong scientific support is controlled caloric restriction, practiced without malnutrition. Animal studies show that reducing caloric intake by about 20% can significantly increase lifespan, delay age-related diseases, and preserve cognitive functions. In humans, this strategy must be implemented with caution and supervision, but preliminary data suggests that balanced, nutritious caloric moderation can reduce inflammatory markers, improve insulin sensitivity, and stimulate autophagy, the cellular recycling process previously discussed. In this sense, longevity appears to benefit more from intermittent scarcity than from constant abundance. A growing concept is intermittent fasting, which alternates periods of eating with fasting windows. Strategies like 16.8, 16 hours fasting, 8 hours eating, have shown impacts on metabolism regulation, weight control, gut microbiota modulation, and activation of cellular repair pathways. However, results vary significantly between individuals, and the ideal approach depends on each person's metabolic profile and lifestyle. More important than following a rigid protocol is ensuring that the foods consumed during eating windows are nutrient-dense, anti-inflammatory, and natural. Science also explores the effects of no specific food groups on longevity. Berries, for example, are rich in anthocyanins, pigments that protect against oxidative stress. Cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, kale, and arugula contain sulfur compounds that stimulate detoxification enzymes. Fermented foods, such as natural yogurt, kefir, and kimchi, promote gut microbiota diversity, which in turn modulates the immune system, mood, and inflammation. Nuts and seeds, rich in healthy fats, minerals, and fiber, protect the heart and reduce the risk of chronic diseases. Even herbs and natural spices like turmeric, ginger, cinnamon, and garlic exert modulatory effects on inflammatory and immune processes. Contrary to the reductionist view of fad diets, the kind of nutrition that promotes longevity is almost always simple, varied, and based on unprocessed foods. Avoiding ultra-processed foods, high in sugars, trans fats, chemical additives, and excess salt is perhaps as important as choosing what to eat. Industrial foods accelerate inflammation, promote insulin resistance, alter gut microbiota, and increase the risk of degenerative diseases. From a nutritional standpoint, healthy aging involves cooking more at home, chewing slowly, listening to the body's signals, and cultivating a healthy relationship with food. The science of nutritional longevity is not about sacrifice, but about conscious choices, repeated consistently over time. Eating well does not guarantee eternal life, but it creates the ideal conditions for the body to function efficiently, even as the years go by. Every balanced meal, every colorful plate, every fresh vegetable is, in essence, a small declaration of care for the body's future. A simple gesture, but one with profound power to transform. In an increasingly sedentary world, where many people spend hours in front of screens and travel seated almost everywhere, the simple act of moving the body has become a powerful tool for prevention and rejuvenation. According to decades of scientific studies, regular physical activity is one of the most consistent and accessible factors in promoting longevity and slowing down cellular aging. It's not just about burning calories or gaining muscle, it's about deeply influencing vital biological systems, reprogramming metabolic functions, and even protecting the brain against cognitive decline. In this context, movement is a silent, free, and scientifically proven medicine. At the cellular level, exercise activates mitochondria, the cell's energy powerhouses, stimulating their biogenesis and efficiency. This means that muscles, the heart, and the brain consume energy more effectively, producing fewer free radicals and reducing oxidative stress. Furthermore, moderate physical activity stimulates the release of myokines, substances produced by muscles that have anti-inflammatory effects, regulate the immune system, and protect against metabolic diseases. Regular exercise also increases levels of neurotrophic factors, like BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which promote neural plasticity and help preserve memory and learning throughout life. In clinical practice and research on long-lived populations, the benefits are clear. Physically active individuals live longer and better. Daily walks, light aerobic activities, moderate strength training, and practices such as Tai Chi, yoga, or Pilates are associated with reduced all-cause mortality, improved cardiovascular health, better blood sugar control, and lower risk of depression, anxiety, and functional decline. More important than extreme intensity is consistency. The body responds better to regularity than to sporadic effort. Even short bouts of movement throughout the day, like taking the stairs, stretching, or walking after meals, have measurable impacts on metabolic health. Studies with older adults show that physical activity is the main factor in maintaining functional autonomy. Sarcopenia, the progressive loss of muscle mass and strength with age, can be significantly slowed with resistance training. This translates to fewer falls, fewer fractures, greater independence, and higher quality of life in old age. Exercise also improves insulin sensitivity, regulates appetite, and helps maintain a healthy body weight, protecting against visceral obesity, which is strongly linked to premature aging and chronic inflammation. In other words, keeping the body in motion keeps the body's systems in sync. There is also an inseparable link between movement and emotional health. During exercise, the body releases endorphins, dopamine, and serotonin, neurotransmitters associated with pleasure, motivation, and well-being. This reduces anxiety symptoms, improves mood, and aids in sleep regulation. Another key pillar of longevity already addressed. Physical movement also has a social dimension, especially in group activities like dance, group walks, or sports. These interactions strengthen bonds, combat loneliness, and create a positive cycle of mental and physical health, something clearly evident in blue zones, where active elders continue walking, gardening, biking, or dancing well into advanced age. It's important to emphasize that there is no single ideal exercise formula for everyone. The best kind of activity is the one that can be sustained with enjoyment and consistency. Even individuals with physical limitations can benefit from adapted routines with professional guidance. What matters is understanding that the human body was designed for movement, and when we stop using it, it weakens. But when we honor it with action, it responds with vitality. Aging, far from being a sentence of decline, can become an active process of care and regeneration, as long as the body keeps moving, step by step, cell by cell. True longevity is not built solely through well-maintained cells, healthy eating, or good genes. There is an essential element that, though invisible, silently shapes the course of life: emotional health. Mental states like chronic stress, loneliness, anxiety, and hopelessness are not just fleeting feelings. They cause profound biological changes, weaken immunity, accelerate cellular aging, and increase the risk of chronic diseases. On the other hand, positive emotions, a sense of purpose, and deep social connections have been repeatedly associated with greater longevity and better quality of life. The brain and body form an integrated network, and everything we feel reverberates through tissues, hormones, and even the genome. One of the most well-established concepts in psychoneuroimmunology, the field that studies the interaction between the mind, nervous system, and immune system, is that chronic stress continuously raises cortisol levels, the so-called tension molecule. When this occurs repeatedly over the years, cortisol weakens immune response, increases systemic inflammation, impairs memory, and reduces the production of melatonin and serotonin, compromising both sleep and mood. Moreover, Chronic stress is associated with telomere shortening, one of the cellular hallmarks of accelerated aging. This connection between emotional state and cellular damage demonstrates that, biologically, living under constant tension is living in fast forward toward deterioration. Conversely, individuals who cultivate positive emotions, such as gratitude, forgiveness, optimism, and compassion, show better regulation of the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal (HPA) axis, lower production of inflammatory cytokines, and greater heart rate variability, a robust indicator of autonomic health. These people tend to exhibit biological resilience, meaning they recover more quickly from illness, cope better with loss, and maintain stronger mental function into old age. Science shows that even simple practices like mindfulness meditation, deep breathing techniques, contemplative prayer, or silent walks in nature activate brain regions associated with calm and promote an internal state of safety, regulation, and repair. Another critical factor is a sense of purpose. Longitudinal studies have revealed that individuals with clear life goals, even modest ones, live longer and suffer fewer illnesses. Having a reason to get out of bed in the morning, whether to care for a grandchild, tend a garden, write in a journal, or serve the community, gives psychological and hormonal structure to life. This sense of direction reduces the risk of depression, enhances immune function, and preserves cognitive performance over the years. In regions like Okinawa and Nicoya, known for their high concentrations of centenarians, life purpose is culturally recognized and even named. In Okinawa, for example, it's called ikigai, the reason for being. Human relationships are also crucial to longevity. The Harvard study of adult development, one of the longest-running studies in history, followed hundreds of individuals for over 80 years and concluded that the poor quality of interpersonal relationships is the strongest predictor of a long and happy life, more so than income, cholesterol, or education level. Feeling loved, supported, and like you belong reduces mortality, slows mental decline, and acts as a shield against loneliness, a condition that can be as harmful to health as smoking. Creating and maintaining emotional bonds, therefore, is not only emotionally fulfilling, it is physiologically protective. In essence, caring for the mind is caring for the body. Emotions are biochemical, thoughts have weight, and subjective well-being, what we silently feel and think, echoes throughout the immune system, the hormones, and the span of life. Aging healthily requires more than physical discipline. It also requires tending to the inner world, nourishing the mind with beauty, purpose, presence, and connection. Science shows this is not philosophy, it's applied biology. True longevity is not merely about resisting time, but about living fully within it, with peace, presence, and meaning. Scattered quietly around the planet, there are 5 regions where people not only live longer, but also maintain their health, autonomy, and vitality well into advanced age. These places, known as blue zones, were identified by researchers led by Dan Bietner in collaboration with National Geographic and longevity scientists. The term was coined after researchers used blue pens to circle areas on maps with high concentrations of healthy centenarians. In these regions, Sardinia, Italy, Okinawa, Japan, Loma Linda, United States, Nicoya, Costa Rica, and Ikaria, Greece, the number of people who live past 90 or 100 without debilitating chronic diseases is significantly higher than the global average. And most fascinating of all, despite vast cultural, religious, and climatic differences, these zones share lifestyle patterns that science recognizes as pillars of longevity. In Okinawa, southern Japan, women live longer than anywhere else on Earth. Their diet is predominantly plant-based, rich in purple sweet potatoes, tofu, seaweed, green vegetables, and jasmine tea. The practice of hara-hachi-bu, eating until 80% full, helps prevent calorie excess. The elderly maintain lifelong social bonds through moai, groups of friends who offer mutual support. Additionally, ikigai, or reason for being, is deeply rooted in the culture. Every person, no matter their age, maintains a daily purpose, tending a garden, teaching, sewing, or visiting friends. This strengthens existential meaning and lowers chronic stress. In Sardinia, a Mediterranean island in Italy, there are villages where men live as long as women, A rare statistical occurrence, local shepherds spend their lives walking rugged terrain which fosters natural physical activity. Their diet includes whole grains, legumes, foraged vegetables, and local red wine rich in polyphenols. Intergenerational living is central. Grandparents, parents, and grandchildren live nearby and share meals daily. This tight-knit family structure and preservation of tradition provide emotional security and buffer against isolation. Spirituality, rituals, and music also play central roles in residents' mental balance. In Loma Linda, California, the Seventh-day Adventist community follows a lifestyle rooted in religious health principles. Residents are mostly vegetarian or eat very little meat, avoid alcohol, tobacco, and stimulants, and observe a weekly day of rest dedicated to spirituality, social connection, and nature. These habits reduce stress, regulate circadian rhythm, and encourage self-care. Studies show that Adventists in Loma Linda live to 7 to 10 years longer than the American average and have lower rates of cardiovascular disease and cancer. Here, faith, food, and ritual rest form a tripod that sustains well-being. In the Yanacoya Peninsula, Costa Rica, longevity is supported by a combination of simple food, fresh air, spontaneous physical activity, and a strong connection with nature and community. The traditional diet includes corn, black beans, plantains, squash, and tropical fruits, fresh, local, unprocessed foods. The region's water is naturally rich in calcium and magnesium, essential minerals for bone and muscle health. Locals maintain close family bonds and stay active well into their 80s. Like in Okinawa, many centenarians here carry a profound sense of personal mission and calm optimism about life. Lastly, on the Greek island of Ikaria, residents walk daily through steep terrain, drink herbal teas, eat slow fermented bread, and take midday naps. The local diet is Mediterranean-like, but with a focus on homegrown products and minimal red meat. Social bonds are strong, and residents approach life with little urgency and a healthy sense of humor. Spirituality is present, as is the custom of celebrating in community. Ikaria has one of the lowest dementia rates in the world, a fact attributed to its blend of food, sleep, activity, and social engagement. The Blue Zones teach us that longevity is not merely a result of genetics or advanced medicine, but of entire cultures structured around simple, consistent, and integrated habits. Eating well, moving naturally, sleeping deeply, living with purpose, and nurturing meaningful human bonds. These are the daily practices that build not just long lives, but fulfilling ones. These longevity territories are, in truth, maps of a possible future, where aging becomes a silent art upheld by the wisdom of everyday life. Living beyond 100 years of age was, until just a few decades ago, a rare and almost mythical feat. Today, thanks to scientific advances and the global rise in life expectancy, the number of centenarians is steadily growing in many parts of the world. Still, reaching triple digits with clarity, autonomy, and health remains an exception, and for that very reason it has become the focus of intense scientific inquiry. Studying people who defy the usual limits of human longevity offers us a window into what truly works when it comes to aging well. By examining the biological, behavioral, and cultural patterns of those who reach 100 or more, researchers have uncovered fascinating clues not only about the biology of longevity, but also about the depth of the human spirit. One of the most intriguing discoveries is that most centenarians did not live perfect lives or avoid hardship. Many endured wars, pandemics, poverty, grief, and irreparable loss. What sets them apart, according to researchers, is a combination of favorable genetics, emotional resilience, moderation, and strong social bonds. In longitudinal studies, such as the New England Centenarian Study, conducted by Boston University, centenarians were found to display optimistic personalities, emotional stability, and a low tendency toward neuroticism. They face life's challenges with mental flexibility and an extraordinary capacity to adapt, traits that appear to protect the body as well. From a genetic perspective, many centenarians carry rare protective variants that make them more resistant to common chronic diseases, such as heart disease, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, and cancer. Genes like APO22, associated with protection against Alzheimer's, FOXO3, linked to oxidative stress regulation and cellular longevity, and others related to DNA repair appear more frequently in these individuals. Still, genetics alone does not account for everything. Most studies suggest that only 20% to 30% of extreme longevity is hereditary. The remaining 70% results from lifestyle choices, behavioral patterns, interpersonal relationships, and environmental factors accumulated over decades. A common trait among centenarians is the profound preservation of functional independence. Well into old age, many continue to walk, cook, care for plants or animals, and socialize until very close to the end of life. Their routines are simple but consistent. Waking early, eating light meals, moving naturally, keeping regular hours, and most importantly, staying connected to others. An emotional factor also stands out. Many report feeling useful, even in old age. Having a role in the family, helping neighbors, telling stories, or teaching something gives a sense of purpose that science recognizes as a true biological tonic. Nutritionally, centenarians rarely followed restrictive diets or modern food trends. Instead, they adopted culturally inherited eating patterns, centered on fresh, local, plant-based, minimally processed foods. Portions tend to be small, and meals are more of a social ritual than a caloric event. Herbal teas, medicinal plants, and homemade fermented drinks are common. Alcohol, when present, is consumed sparingly and usually in social settings, such as a glass of wine shared with family or friends in the evening. Eating slowly, in silence or with pleasant company, seems to be a nearly universal habit among them. Curiously, centenarians also report as healthy sleep habits and low exposure to chronic stressors. Many go to bed early, wake with the sunrise, take short naps, and maintain consistent rest routines. They often practice, without naming it, intuitive forms of meditation, prayer, contemplation, and gratitude. It's not uncommon to find among them a philosophical and light-hearted outlook on death, the passage of time, and the value of simplicity. In an age dominated by high performance and overstimulation, centenarians seem to have followed a slower, steadier, and deeply human path that over time blossomed into longevity. The science of centenarians continues to evolve, and new genetic, epigenetic, and behavioral studies will help uncover more secrets behind their extended vitality. But one thing is clear: aging well does not require a perfect life, but rather living imperfect moments well, with serenity, connection, purpose, and balance. Centenarians are more than rare cases of longevity. They are mirrors of possibility. They show us that with the right choices and the right spirit, time can become an ally, not an enemy. The idea of slowing down, halting, or even reversing human aging has moved beyond the realm of science fiction and entered the spotlight as an emerging field within biomedicine. Around the world, laboratories, startups, and research institutes are investing billions of dollars in technologies that promise to extend youth, preserve vitality, and challenge the biological limits of time. This area of study, known as geroscience, approaches aging as a treatable multifactorial condition, not an inevitable decline. Although results in humans remain in the early stages, advances in animal models and cellular systems are fueling hope, controversy, and intense ethical debates about how far we can and should go in pursuit of extreme longevity. One of the most promising avenues is the development of senolytic drugs, compounds designed to detect and eliminate senescent cells from the body. These cells, often referred to as biological zombies, stop dividing but remain metabolically active, releasing inflammatory substances that accelerate the aging of surrounding tissues. In mouse studies, senolytic treatments rejuvenated tissues, restored organ function, and extended lifespan. Compounds like quercetin, dasatinib, and other synthetic molecules are currently being tested in human clinical trials, with the aim of treating age-related diseases and promoting functional regeneration. Another strategy under investigation is epigenetic modulation, which seeks to reprogram the gene expression patterns of aged cells. Using Yamanaka factors, a group of proteins capable of resetting adult cells to an embryonic-like state, scientists have managed in laboratory settings to partially reverse aging in human cells and regenerate damaged tissues. Though still confined to controlled environments, these findings pave the way for future regenerative therapies that could rejuvenate the body from within, without altering the DNA. Epigenetic reprogramming is also being explored as a preventive strategy for degenerative diseases and cognitive decline. Gene therapy is another promising frontier. With the advancement of CRISPR gene editing technology, studies have emerged to modify genes linked to accelerated aging, including those related to DNA repair, mitochondrial metabolism, and cellular senescence. In theory, it may become possible to correct hereditary mutations that predispose individuals to early decline, or even insert protective gene variants found in centenarians. However, the ethical dilemmas and unpredictable risks of genomic manipulation continue to limit its clinical use. The scientific community remains divided between enthusiasm for lab breakthroughs and caution in the face of human biological complexity. Our fast-growing field is personalized nutrigenomics, the use of genetic data to design customized diets that optimize individual metabolism, reduce inflammation, and enhance the body's cellular response to aging. Alongside this, companies are emerging that offer real-time monitoring of molecular biomarkers of aging, such as Horvath's epigenetic clock, which estimates biological age based on DNA methylation patterns. This would allow for ongoing assessment of intervention efficacy, enabling treatment adjustments based on biological responses rather than symptoms alone. Despite the excitement, experts warn that none of these technologies are ready for widespread use or have guaranteed outcomes in humans. Most interventions remain in preclinical stages or early-phase trials with small samples. Additionally, there are risks of side effects, metabolic imbalances, and unknown long-term impacts. The pursuit of technological longevity also raises philosophical and societal concerns, such as unequal access to treatments, the elitism of extended youth, strain on pension systems and demographics, and ethical boundaries around interfering with biological time. For now, science confirms that the classical pillars of longevity remain the most effective, safest, and most accessible: natural nutrition, regular movement, deep sleep, human connection, and a sense of purpose. Emerging technologies, if they prove successful, will serve only as complementary tools, not replacements for these ancient foundations. The future may bring solutions to delay aging, but the present already offers concrete ways to live longer and better. Perhaps the real secret lies in balancing science with wisdom and innovation with simplicity. For millennia, human life expectancy remained low, constrained by infections, malnutrition, wars, and poor hygiene conditions. However, in the last 2 centuries, this scenario has changed dramatically. With the advancement of medicine, vaccination, technology, and education, entire countries have doubled or even tripled their average lifespan. Yet now, as populations age on a global scale, a new question arises. Are we approaching a biological limit? Or will it be possible to live 120, 130, even 150 years in good health? This question, once philosophical, has become a subject of mathematical, genetic, and biomedical analysis. And the answers, though still under debate, are beginning to take shape under the light of science. Global statistics show that although average life expectancy is increasing, maximum longevity, the greatest number of years a human being can live, has remained stable. The oldest verified person on record was Jean Calment, who lived to 122 years and 164 days, passing away in 1997 in France. Since then, no one has broken that record, even though dozens have surpassed the age of 110. This suggests that there may be a natural ceiling imposed by human biology, possibly related to the limits of cellular replication, genome integrity, and the irreversible accumulation of molecular damage. Still, this biological ceiling is subject to debate, and some scientists believe that with the right interventions it can be extended. Mathematical models based on demographic data indicate that the natural maximum human lifespan falls between 115 and 125 years. Beyond that range, the annual mortality rate rises exponentially, making it extremely rare for anyone to surpass 120 with vitality. However, Studies of centenarians and supercentenarians show that many reach extreme ages without serious chronic illnesses, challenging the assumption that aging always equates to decline. In other words, the quality of longevity can be improved, even if the total lifespan has inherent limits. Pushing this biological boundary is at the forefront of aging science. Research using model organisms like worms, flies, and mice has managed to extend their lifespans by more than 50% through genetic manipulations, calorie restriction, and pharmaceutical compounds. In primates and human models, the gains are more modest but still promising. Companies such as Labs, Google's Calicoe, and other biotech startups are investing in regenerative therapies, epigenetic editing, and senolytic drugs. These approaches aim to delay the onset of age-related diseases and preserve biological function for longer, a significant achievement even without breaking longevity records. Nonetheless, there are non-biological factors that also constrain ultra-long life. Unequal access to healthcare, social disparities, urban lifestyles, pollution, and chronic stress directly affect life expectancy, even in developed countries with advanced medicine. Obesity, sedentary habits, social isolation, and emotional disorders reduce the likelihood of reaching very old ages with good quality of life. For this reason, many experts argue that the longevity revolution must begin with daily habits and public health policies, not just futuristic biotechnology. If in the future, reaching 120 years becomes common, it will bring profound societal changes. Retirement systems, productivity models, family dynamics, economic structures, and the very meaning of life will need re-evaluation. Extended life also requires extended wellness, because living longer without living well could become a burden. The real challenge is not just to prolong existence, but to ensure that the additional years are functional, lucid, and meaningful. Achieving this will require a new pact between science, culture, and collective awareness. The future of human longevity is still under construction, but if there is one thing science confirms, it is that what we do today shapes the time we will have tomorrow. The way we eat, move, sleep, feel, and connect with others lays day by day the biological foundation of our potential longevity. Reaching 120 may or may not become common, but reaching 90 or 100 in good condition is already a realistic possibility. And it begins with the quiet, repeated choices we make every day. After decades of studies, thousands of scientific articles, and countless theories, the science of longevity has reached a crucial point of convergence. There is no magic formula, but there is a consistent set of practices that truly work for aging well. These practices don't promise immortality or eternal youth, but they offer something far more realistic and valuable: the chance to live longer with health, clarity, autonomy, and meaning. Longevity is not the result of a single factor, but the sum of coherent choices repeated for decades that influence the body, the mind, and the environment in which we live. First and foremost, dietary habits remain one of the strongest pillars. Diets rich in whole foods, fresh vegetables, healthy fats, fish, nuts, legumes, and fruits consistently demonstrate positive effects on inflammation, oxidative stress, hormonal regulation, and gut health. Avoiding ultra-processed foods, refined sugars, fried items, and chemical additives protects not only the heart and liver, but also the brain and immune system. Eating in moderation, chewing slowly, and respecting satiety cues are also part of this nutritional wisdom, a hallmark of long-lived populations in the blue zones. Second, quality sleep is confirmed as one of the most powerful natural mechanisms of regeneration. Sleeping between 7 and 9 hours per night in a dark, quiet, and consistent environment strengthens the immune system, balances hormones, protects the brain, and contributes to metabolic stability. Deep sleep is essential for tissue repair, memory consolidation, and the preservation of telomeres, the cellular markers of aging. Neglecting sleep accelerates deterioration. Prioritizing it is, therefore, an invisible yet profound investment in healthy longevity. Another undeniable factor is daily movement. The human body was designed to move, and when it remains sedentary, it deteriorates. Light walking, functional activities, stretching, dancing, gardening, yoga, and moderate strength training are simple and effective ways to preserve muscle mass, strengthen bones, enhance metabolism, and protect brain function. Even small doses of movement throughout the day yield significant benefits. Longevity doesn't require marathons, it requires consistency. Movement is life in its most literal sense. In addition, emotional and mental balance is a crucial component of longevity. Chronic stress, constant anxiety, and loneliness are known to accelerate biological aging, while positive emotions, a sense of purpose, and strong social bonds act as invisible protective shields. Practices like meditation, gratitude, spirituality, artistic expression, and contact with nature help regulate the neuroimmune axis and promote resilience. Having a reason to live, maintaining emotional ties, belonging to a community, and feeling useful are just as vital as any supplement or genetic therapy. Finally, genetics contributes, but does not determine. Studies show that only about 25% of our longevity is inherited. The rest is epigenetic, shaped by our choices and environments. This means that even with unfavorable predispositions, it's possible to change one's biological path through healthy actions. Biology is not a fixed destiny, but a field of possibilities. Every balanced meal, every restful night, every gentle walk, every heartfelt hug reshapes the body and mind toward a longer and healthier future. Ultimately, the science of longevity teaches us that time is not an enemy to be fought, but a force to be understood and cultivated. Aging is natural, but aging well is an art built through simple yet consistent choices. It's strengthened by routine, silence, and care. It starts early but can begin at any age. It doesn't require perfection, only presence, because living longer is not about counting the years, it's about making every year count.